Hey, I'm Adam Jusko, and this is Strictly Credit Cards, where we talk about strictly credit cards. Subscribe, why don't you? In this video, we are going to look at one of two new AARP credit cards. AARP recently switched over from partnering with Chase to Barclays, and in that transition, they overhauled one of their cards, added a second card. So we are going to look in this video at the Essential Rewards Mastercard, which is a cashback card that is more for everyday purchases, and we'll talk about what it offers, who it's good for, and maybe who it's not so good for. The AARP Essential Rewards Mastercard is a no annual fee cashback card that gives you those cashback rewards using the following formula. You get 3% back on gas, 3% back at drugstores, 2% back on medical expenses, which covers a lot of ground: doctors, hospitals, dentists, optometrists. Bunch of other stuff falls under medical expenses as well. Anything else with the card, you are getting 1% back on. If you use the card for at least $500 of purchases in the first 90 days of having it, there is a bonus of $100. In order to redeem those cashback rewards, you have to have earned at least $25 in cashback rewards, with one exception. And once you have, you can redeem into a checking or savings account. You can take that as a statement credit, meaning it offsets purchases you have made with the card. There's gift cards, there is merchandise, and then you also can use your cashback to redeem toward your AARP membership, which is a $16 cost, and in that case, you could redeem at $16 instead of that $25 cost. Now, as far as I know, you don't actually have to be an AARP member to get this card. AARP licenses out their name to a lot of different financial companies. I think they do a little oversight to make sure they feel comfortable with what those companies are offering, but you don't necessarily have to be an AARP member to get a lot of these things, and I believe this card you can get without actually being a member. Now let's look at the rates, fees, and other miscellaneous items with this card. Like I said earlier, no annual fee. In terms of interest rate, you could be approved at a rate of 16.74, 20.74, or 25.74%. In today's market, that's 16.74, not too bad. Obviously, if you're getting up over 20%, not so good, but it's going to depend on what your credit history is, which one of those interest rates you get. You should be paying off your credit cards in full each month, and if you were, then those interest rates would not even come into play. There is a 0% balance transfer offer with this card. If you have a big balance sitting somewhere else with a high interest rate, you could transfer to this card and get a 0% rate for 15 months while you pay it off. There is an upfront 3% balance transfer fee, meaning you would pay a fee up front of 3% of the amount that you were transferring onto this card. The card has a 3% foreign transaction fee, meaning if you use it outside of the United States, you're going to get charged an extra 3% on all those purchases you make outside of the country, so this is not an ideal card for international travel. Finally, you do get a free FICO score each month, I believe, with this card, free FICO credit score. So if you want to track your credit score via your credit card, this is one way to do it. All right, so those are the details, and then obviously the next question is this a good credit card? Well, that's going to depend on what you want out of it and how much you are going to spend in those sort of enhanced categories, the categories where you're getting more than 1%. 3% on gas is a pretty good cashback rate on gas. 3% on drugstores is a pretty good cashback rate there. There's sort of a theme to this card in the fact that you have the 3% on drugstores and the 2% on medical expenses. So if you do spend a lot in those categories, well, then this is a card that would make sense for you. You're also going to have the question of, do you want to hold just one card and you want it to be for everything you buy, or is this a card that you would maybe get and have other cards for other categories where you might spend a good amount, like groceries, dining out, all of that kind of stuff. So you have to decide what it is you want out of the card. So if you have a lot of drugstore and medical expenses, this is a card that could make sense. If that's not something that's really much of a spend for you, well, then maybe that gas category is something that you would pick up this card for, but you probably would want other cards to go along with it. So let's delve into those ideas a little bit more. Say you wanted to hold just one card and you were thinking it might be the AARP credit card. Well, you would get 3% on your gas, you'd get your 3% at drugstores, you'd get your 2% on medical expenses, but everything else that you would buy with the card only 1%. So if you were going to buy a lot of other things with the card and the gas, drugstore, medical was not really all that big of a spend for you, well then maybe this card would not make sense. Maybe you'd be better off going after one of the 2% flat cashback cards on the market that would give you 2% back on everything that you buy, and you wouldn't have to think about any categories at all. So something like the PayPal Cashback Mastercard, which is a no annual fee card that gives you 2% back on everything. It has no foreign transaction fees, so if you use it outside of the country, you wouldn't get charged that extra 3%. There are cards like the Citi Double Cash, the Fidelity Visa, and there are other 2% cards out there as well. So depending on how your spending breaks down and how much you want to think about these things, maybe a 2% flat cashback card would be better than the AARP card. Now, of course, there's nothing saying you have to have just one credit card and use it for all your purchases. So if you're interested in the AARP card for that 3% on gas, the 3% at drugstores, you could get that card. And you could get one of the 2% cards like the PayPal Cashback Mastercard or the Fidelity Visa or the Citi Double Cash card. And so then you'd have your 3% categories, and everything else would get you 2%. All right, now, if that idea of maximizing cash back on every purchase that you make appeals to you and you are willing to hold multiple credit cards, I might tell you that the AARP card is one that I would say you shouldn't get at all, because you could build a stable of no annual fee cards that give you at least what you are getting from this AARP card, and you could get better bonuses from these other cards than you are getting here. So 3% gas that you're getting from this card, you could also get from the Bank of America Cash Rewards card, and there is the potential for a $200 bonus with that card. 3% on drugstores, you could choose the Chase Freedom Unlimited or the Chase Freedom Flex and get that same 3% at drugstores, as well as some other enhanced cashback categories, as well as pick up a nice bonus from one of those cards. In addition, you could go after cards that give you greater cashback in other categories that we haven't even talked about yet. So the Blue Cash Everyday card from American Express, you could get 3% back on your grocery purchases. There are multiple cards out there on the market where you could potentially get 3% back on your restaurant purchases, like the Capital One Savor One card. And then of course you could have one of those 2% cards for all of the other purchases that don't get you at least 3% on your purchases that you are making, and you wouldn't have to pay an annual fee for any of it, and you could get a lot of bonuses. But not everyone wants to play that game, so when I look at the AARP credit card on its own merits, I'm sort of neutral on it. It's a no annual fee card. The 3% on gas is good. The 3% on drugstores is good. The 2% on medical expenses is okay as well. So if you had a lot of drugstore, prescription purchases, and you had other medical expenses also, I could see why this card might be attractive to you. Its bonus is a little paltry compared to some other cards on the market, but overall not bad, and especially if you were willing to hold two cards and pair this one up with a 2% card that I talked about. So then you'd have 3% on gas, 3% on drugstores, 2% everywhere else. Not bad. For me, I'm willing to hold multiple cards and try to get those greater rewards on more than the categories that I am seeing here, and I like to go after some of those upfront bonuses that are a little better than what AARP is offering. Still, not a bad card, understandable if you would find it attractive. Look at your own spending, decide whether it makes sense for you, how many cards you want to hold, all of that good stuff. So that is it. Questions, comments, put them in that comment section below. Otherwise, I thank you for watching. We'll talk to you again soon.